Come take a look at the new Horus Heresy Age of Darkness Rulebook.
Spiky bits.
Welcome back, Hobby Maniacs. I'm Robbie B, and today we are going to gently put down our iPad. Take a look at the new Horus Heresy Age of Darkness Rulebook on both digital and hardcover as well. We don't have the hardcover, but through the magic of the interwebs, we have the digital, and I have an interesting way to show you of how to look at some of these ebooks that have been coming out from Games Workshop. So first off, let's jump over to their site and see what we can see there. There it is, a website we all know very well. So for a limited time only this holiday season, I would imagine you can get the new Horus Heresy Age of Darkness Red Book with the free two-page quick reference sheet right here. We'll click right into there because that's where we're going anyways. At 40 pounds, I think that ends up being about $52 US. Usually ships within 3 working days currently, although I imagine based on their Facebook post, which had quite a few comments both for and against this book, saying that, well, they had some difficulties keeping up with all the traffic on their site on Christmas Day. That is a good thing for this segment of the hobby, at least. So, description, we've got the Horus Heresy rulebook itself. Comes with the 5 big sections: core rules, unit types, battlefield terrain, which is going to be your data sheet section right here. There's a whole bunch of data sheets in this section, and we'll show you some of those, but not all of them. Prepping for battle, the appendix where your USRs and things like that, it's all coming back to you now, probably from 7th edition, I would say. This version of Horus Heresy is more like 7.5 edition of Warhammer 40k. And then the reference section right here, which is going to have all your indexes and stuff in there for you to check out. And then they have a couple of, little fancy pictures and things, like how it all breaks down, like the Force Org section and movement phase and things. There is a lot in here there's some of the setups. There's 6 missions in here. This page actually is one of the things that folks were complaining about online, about how this, I guess, may contradict some of the stuff about ordnance rules in the USR section. I haven't researched all the finer points about what people are saying there, but overall, we're just kind of trying to do a preview of it, and then the galaxy map right there. So let's add to cart and get our copy out. Alright, so one of the things I wanted to show y'all was this nifty little program called Adobe Digital Editions. And this particular program here is pretty neat because there isn't a whole lot of ways on Windows desktop to read PDFs, or EPUBs from Forge World or wherever, whether it's Black Library or what have you. This little reader, it isn't the greatest, and it doesn't, some of the functionality doesn't quite work. And I'm not going to leave this view up for the whole video here because we're going to get into the actual review itself. But I wanted to show you guys this. Stuff like the double page overlay doesn't work, which you can't see for some reason on your screen right there that you're looking at. The search doesn't really work either in here, as well as it does, if you open it up in Apple iBooks, on your iOS device. I don't have an Android device, so I can't tell you how this looks on Android. I can only tell you what my desktop and my iPad version, of course, is, phenomenal. All the interactive things that you can click on and go to the different sections inside of the actual book. Now, the book itself, like I said, has the 5 big sections. It also is about 200 pages. So this is your resource for playing the new rules, but it's not going to give you all the data sheets and stuff. You're still going to need, whether it's your black books or your other red books that have the compilation of all these things. And while I was actually checking on my downloads here on my iPad, I actually noticed that there were updates available for all of the red books here on the iOS. So the Mechanicum, what is this? The Age of Darkness, Legion of Astartes, the Crusade Rulebook, both and the Mechanicum, it looks like. So the Imperial Guard stuff for the Imperial Army, and both of the other red books that contain both the Legion rules for the Legions themselves, and then also the generic data sheet kind of things where it gives you all the stuff like, hey, here's the Fire Raptor. It doesn't matter what legion you take it for, it's always the same. And then you apply your specific legion rules to it. Now, unfortunately, I'm not a Horus Heresy expert. The guys over at Radio Free Estevan actually are a great group of fellas. They put out podcasts a couple times a month. They're really into this stuff, and you can check them out over on their Facebook page. They have lots to say about it. Of course, there's various forums and Facebook groups out there too going over all this stuff, but you really owe it to yourself to hang out in the RFI chat if you can get in there. I think it might be a Patreon only kind of thing, but just being in there and listening to some of what the folks have to say, and they're super friendly, always there to answer questions and stuff. It's a really good resource for any Heresy player out there. So like I said, Adobe Digital Editions is this program here, and it has all of your, things that you want to click on to see all of the different table of contents, your page list. You can search, not really in this. It doesn't quite work. I haven't, either of these don't really work, but it does have bookmarks, which is going to help us with this review right here. And then of course, all your hyperlinks and stuff work, like if you want to go to certain pages, but unfortunately it doesn't have the double page view or anything like that. But it is a good workaround to some of the EPUB readers and things out there, and converting it to Kindle and all this other stuff. You just literally open it up and it's good to go. So it's a free download as long as you have an Adobe account on their site. So if you're already using Photoshop or something like that, you probably already do. It literally took 2 seconds to get up and running, and here we are right here. So we're going to take a quick break and come right back with a better looking version of this. This is kind of boring for you all at least, and jump right into it. Okay, and now we're back with what hopefully is a better looking version for you all out there. I'm still using the same interface. I just cropped the screen right here a little bit for you guys, but you can still see everything in a little bit more presentable format. So real quick, let's run down what is in here. So first off, you've got the rulebook itself, the intro, where it's going to go into all the different things, the contents, which is a great resource digitally. Here you can click on the things, but if you have the hardback version, well, hey, now you know where to look. Intro, how to play games in the Age of Darkness. And I definitely wanted to mention something, obviously mad props to Alan Bly, who is no longer with us, unfortunately, but there's an intro in here that was written, not that in memory, but there's a little intro on this page that once you read it, it really kind of brings a tear to your eye. Like this might have been one of the very last things that Alan wrote for this book right here, and it's definitely worth talking about. Make sure you take the time to read this. It's on page 7 in the new book there. Then it goes into the core rules section, which is going to give you a lot of stuff. If you played 7th edition 40k, you're going to notice and see a lot of similarities in this whole issue here, like general principles, the turn. They kind of replace some of the line of sight stuff in here with pictures from the Heresy itself. Let's see if we can find some of them. But basically it just goes over things that you probably already know from I'm wondering where the whole getting down to the line of sight thing is. I know it was in here. Definitely done a lot of reading in here. Well, there you go. You can see where they kind of did a little bit. They took Horus Heresy models and kind of redid some of the pictures. But overall, stuff like this is things we've seen in the past from 7th edition. Now, there are some instances in here that people are starting to notice where they have cut and pasted things in from 7th edition rules. There's even a couple places where they say refer to your codex. Well, we don't have those, guys. But overall, this is a step in the right direction to at least kind of put a band-aid on the rule set. Now that we have 8th for 40k, 6 months later we get the kind of the updated version for playing Horus Heresy. That's basically like a 7.5. There was some folks saying some things about ordnance weapons that they might conflict. I haven't done the research on it. Again, this isn't an inside baseball kind of look at Horus Heresy. We're going to show you some of the changes that we have noticed, but we're not really going to get into how it's going to shake up the game, because I'm not an expert. I literally haven't played Horus Heresy in like two years. And to be quite honest, not to be a Debbie Downer or anything, I'm probably not going to play a whole lot of Horus Heresy in the future, just because of the fact that we have to have our hands in so many baskets and know so many different types of rules and so many different rule sets. I'm already confusing 7th and 8th edition 40k for myself, And when I'm trying to play other games, I like to have one kind of miniatures, tabletop kind of type thing in my brain pan at one time. Like I can play ships, I can play cards, you know, whatever. But I just have to retain so much information on a daily basis. That doesn't mean you can't do it. Maybe you can. That doesn't mean you shouldn't. But I'm probably not going to be an expert on or even have a lot of conversational things to say past this point about this game system. Love the models. Love the universe, obviously, like a lot of you out there, but unfortunately, this is kind of where we're at. And then it gets into unit types, where it's going to break down, you know, artillery, how artillery work, how jump troops work, and all that stuff that we saw back in the day for 7th edition 40K. The next section, and this is what we were talking about kind of in the intro, was battlefield terrain. And they clarify this a little bit more, and they give you a lot of fortification data sheets in here. There's a whole grip of them. These don't exactly translate over right in this reader here. They look better in the iPad version, but as you can see, there is quite a few of them in here. And probably the section that a lot of folks are the veterans of Horus Heresy are gonna gravitate to is the preparing for battle section, where they're gonna give you how it all works now. And you know, your force organizations, your battlefield roles, your charts. Warlord, there was a couple of changes in here that we noticed. Like one of the things was, I think, something about if he dies, you immediately lose those abilities and things. And it was kind of funny because one of the things that some of the folks over on the RFI chat were saying was, oh crap, so if you have something in reserve that's outflanking and you lose your Warlord, now it comes on from like your normal board edge, that could be a little rough. But there are some instances in here where things can be rough. It is the Grim Dark. We all just got to remember that. And then the Warlord traits chart. A lot of this is going to be familiar to some of you out there. And here's your allies, which doesn't translate over well into here, unfortunately. It does display just fine in the iPad version, which is loading the EPUB. So I don't know, Apple has some crazy Tom Cruise witchcraft, which makes the EPUBs display just as good as the iOS interactive versions, which is cool. Then it gets into battlefield, determining deployment type, all the stuff you need to first turn, game links, mission special rules, victory conditions, etc. And your 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 missions in here. Remember, there's additional missions in each of the black books, which may or may not contradict some of this stuff. So obviously, I feel like we're going to see an FAQ in our future for this book, but until we get it, you know, just be sensible about it. The Horus Heresy community is pretty much a tight-knit group to begin with, so I feel like this isn't going to be super ultra competitive kind of, you know, thing at tournaments and such, so most people will be able to sort this out amongst themselves. The appendices are also probably an area of high interest for a lot of folks. So you're going to have your special rules, which are your USRs of yesteryear. There is a lot in this section. Everything from, you know, starts at A, ends at Z, goes all the way through most of the stuff here. Of course, templates are still in here. You know, you've got barrages and how do they work. You know, all sorts of stuff that we saw in 7th edition is still, for the most part, in 7.5, except for a few things like, you know, invisibility, and there's some grenade shenanigans you can do too. Then it gets into the psychic disciplines, which, you know, warp charge and stuff like that, and all of those charts. Also, demonology. Remember, you used to be able to summon demons, which you can still do. In here, there is a reference on how to summon them, however, somewhere. And yes, Destroyer, there's the demon summoning rules. And yes, Destroyer is still a weapon. D-weapons are still a thing in this. And then it gets into the reference pages, which are probably a carbon copy of the cards that will come free front to back, or at least some of them, in the new bonus if you order the hardcover book from Forge World here this weekend. And then it gets into the index, which is 100% interactive and clickable. So overall, like I said, 200 pages, pretty much worth it, you know, to get your updated versions of the Horus Heresy. Now let's go over a few changes in here that we should talk about. Like we said, there is destroyer weapons. They are still a thing. Stomp's still in here. You know, there's a lot of gotchas still in this book that folks may or may not have liked back in the day. But again, when you don't have things like Eldar and Tau and all that crazy Xenos that was such a problem in 7th edition, it might be a little bit more balanced, to be quite honest, but I don't know for sure. Remember too, vehicles have line of sight and armor facing in this edition here. That's all still part of the game. So if you're picking up Horus Heresy for the first time, you might want to definitely remember that. It is going from 8th edition back to 7 or 7.5 if you want to call it that. Will take a little bit of getting used to in your brain if you are unfamiliar with the way things used to be in the main rules for 40k. And this was kind of a little kick in the pants for me personally. So it used to be that Bane Blades and Shadow Swords and all sorts of dope things you couldn't run in Astartes. Like, I have a Shadow Sword that had Iron Warriors icons all over it. And literally the day after, I ripped them all off as a project to paint it up for Deathcore Krieg for my guard army. They come out with this update here saying that you can indeed take Bane Blades and all manner of super heavy Lord of Wars, as well as the Marauder, Destroyer, and Bomber, some of the fighters, and the Minotaur artillery, self-prepared artillery, in games of Horus Heresy. So if you do have, air quotes, Astartes version of these combo plastic or just Forge World resin kits, you can play with them now, which is cool, but not for me because, like I said, I'm not going to go through the trash and dig all those parts back out. Sigh. It happens. 10 years, I waited too long apparently. I should have waited one more day. So that's an interesting update. And then of course you can take the Space Marine crew and such so that they're hitting on a little bit better, hitting on 3s. That's the old BS3 or BS4 -7 equals hits on 3s. Ain't quite the way it is in 8th edition. Another update that the folks were talking about was the sudden death victory stuff in here, and some things like, you know, in reference to having drop pods on the table and stuff like that. So definitely read up on as many sections as you can, and I'm sure a lot of the folks out there are already going to be talking about some of the changes. Now, this is some of the stuff that they actually previewed on their Twitch stream. Grenades. If you can throw grenades, you can still only throw one grenade per person in the shooting phase, but if you can activate a grenade in the assault phase, you can do that as many times as possible, and that's all right, kind of this little section right here. So you can kind of multi-bomb grenades in assault, which is interesting to see. Telepathy has a big change, and that is Mind Howl is the new replacement, well, not quite replacement, for invisibility. Invisibility is gone, and now we've got this malediction right here in front of us to help, I guess, I don't know, keep things balanced or something like that. I feel like you don't really need invisibility in 7th edition 40k if you don't have all those dirty Xenos to kind of pick you apart from across the table like we were seeing back in the day in 40k. So that, for the most part, is just a quick overview of some of the changes. Like I said, there's gonna be a lot more in-depth things that you can find out on the internet, Facebook pages. There's all sorts of forums, and like I said, Radio Free Istvan has a great Facebook page for all this stuff as well. So if you're a fan of the Heresy, well, your time is now, because we have the new updated rules for this. However, like I said, completely different from the 8th edition 40k. So it's going to be interesting to see how this goes forward, if Games Workshop is going to continue to support two fundamentally different rule sets going forward. One, of course, might be able to be kept up by the Forge World studio. The other one, obviously, the Games Workshop mainstream studio on themselves there. So I hope you enjoyed this brief, hopefully brief enough, and some suggestions on some EPUB readers for you for all of your future Black Library purchases there. If you like these kind of features, please subscribe to this channel. Will help you keep your hobby muscles strong, and turn on notifications so you can be the very first to like and comment on these videos.
Deleted scenes, bonus content, and all the interviews and post-game wrap-up videos can be located in the Hall of Veterans on thelongwar.net. Visit thelongwar.net today and try a week completely free with no strings attached. That's not all. TheLongWar.net is also your hobby resource for exclusive early access with an ad-free experience to all your favorite videos. Members of the Hall of Veterans gain early exclusive access to multiple hobby videos.